This is TJ with TechMadeEZ. Welcome to the channel. My channel is all about making things affordable, practical, and easy. And you saw what we're going to do today. We're going to compare my $300 workstation against a $1,300 workstation, running at 23 watts. Mine's running about 130 watts. And we're going to see what the price difference is there in electricity. Now, I will say this much. I have gotten very interested in high-efficiency servers lately. The last year or so, I've been watching Steve's Hardware and Wolfgang's channel as well. Wolfgang does a great job talking about efficiency of products, motherboards, CPUs, power supplies, on and on and on. And then Steve's Hardware has talked a lot about these mini PCs and small factory farm PCs, which were really attracted to me, and I said, hey, can I replace my home business server with one of these? And I do have a video on how I did that. But what we want to do today is, I actually had a viewer comment on my HP server that, hey, those old processors use a lot of electricity compared to the new ones. And Wolfgang did one of his comparisons with the i3 13100 CPU, which I believe he put in this new system that he presented. And so I said, that's true, but we have to look at the whole picture. How much is your system going to cost you to build? You're going to end up, if it's a new build, by the time you add up hard drives, motherboards, memory, case, all that kind of stuff, you're looking at probably around $825. I figured that was a modest price. It could be a little less than that, it could be a little more than that, depending on what parts you put in. So if you build my system is costing $300 or $500 less. So how long does it take you in electrical savings to break even on that $500 extra that you're spending? So that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to look at electric prices, or electricity prices in the UK and in the United States. And we're going to compare Wolfgang's system against a few of my systems that I have here with varying wattage usage to see how long it takes to break even, or your return on investment because you're spending more on a server to save money on electricity. And I just want to say this much right now, that I thoroughly enjoy Steve's Hardware and Wolfgang's videos. They're very informative, very educational. And I wouldn't be doing this without their channels. And I'm going to leave links to Wolfgang's, because I reference Wolfgang a lot, and I'm going to leave links to the videos in the description below. Let's get started. Okay, before we get into the nuts and bolts of this, I really have to say something here really quick. One thing that bothers me sometimes about YouTubers when they talk about servers, gaming systems, they don't always give all of the price, how much it costs to make. And that was one of the problems with Wolfgang. Yeah, he came up with this great server, but he never really said how much all of it was going to cost. And also, too, a lot of times these guys get stuff for free. Like he got the hard drives for free from Western Digital. Western is a promoter of his. I don't have a problem with them getting free stuff, but they still have to let you know how much would it be if they were going to buy those hard drives. How much was it going to be if they buy this, buy that, so you know what the cost of the whole system that he's putting together. Second of all, when we test this, and Wolfgang did the same thing, he tests everything at idle. And the reason why at idle, a home server runs at idle most of the time. It runs some background services in the background, but it doesn't take that much to run those services. Like me right now, I have my home business server, no one's accessing it, and we only save files on it. It's just running. My video server, nobody's accessing it right now. It's just running at idle. The only time it doesn't run at idle is if I play a video off of it. So that's how we're going to gauge this, is on what a server is at idle. Because most of the time it's going to be running at idle, and when you are using it, you might only use it for like an hour, maybe 2 hours. And when you take a look at the cost that it costs you to run something a day, you're going to see that that isn't very much. When you're putting a heavy load on it for an hour or two, it really doesn't cost that much more in the end. So let's go ahead, let's jump into it. Okay, so like I mentioned, we're going to look at the US cost of electricity and the UK's cost of electricity, because the cost of electricity in the US the cost of electricity in the UK is way more than the US. But first of all, we got to talk about these systems and how much wattage they use to figure all that out, and why I went down this, what started all this. And I will admit, when I was doing these servers and I would see these
low profile servers and how much wattage they say that they were using and so on, and money that they were using, and including Wolfgang. I'd watched some of Wolfgang's videos as well, so when the person made a comment about my video, I knew exactly what he'd talk about because I had already watched that same video. And it wasn't particularly on this system, it was on the i3 13100 CPU. He was just talking how much more efficient it would be than one of these older Xeon CPUs, which is true, but there's a bigger picture than that, than just to look at the CPUs only. Okay, so one of the things that's about Wolfgang's system here is he never once said how much all of this stuff cost him. Now, I came up with 1,345, and I'll show you how I derived that, and it is just a guesstimate. Now, the whole thing about my channel is I try to do things on the cheap but still have quality. And so let's look at the system that I used for this 265 DIY NAS. Again, it's 24 terabytes, 12 gigs or 16 gigs of RAM, 4 cores, 8 threads. Wolfgang's server here, it's 18 terabytes. I don't remember how much RAM he said, but I'm assuming he's got 16 or 32 gigs of RAM. And he's got 2 NVMe drives. He's got a 10 gig NIC in here, plus he's got this super micro case. So let's go ahead and break down the cost of all these so that we know where we're getting these numbers from, so that then we can go ahead and see what is our return on investment, where I'm buying such a cheap server and Wolfgang is creating a more expensive server. How long does it take to get break even on the electricity that we're saving? So let's look at that. So on my HP, I use an HP Z420 for this. You can pick those up anywhere between $80 and $100. This particular, at the time I made this video, there was one out there for $90 that came with 16 gigs of RAM, came with a CPU, a decent CPU, an E5 1620 version 2, and that has 4 cores, 8 threads. Came with the GPU. Just needed an SSD for the operating system, which is $15. The total system was $105. Now I always buy used hard drives, so I bought 4 6 terabyte used server hard drives, and I'm gonna make a video on these server hard drives here real soon. And I've always used these server hard drives for years. Okay, so we have the system now, $160 plus $265. Okay, so now you can't always get a system like this that has 16 gigs of RAM in it, has the right CPU. Now this is a base CPU, what I'd want for a server, and it works great for just a file server, so this one's fine. You could run few Dockers app with this as well. But let's just look at now, if you can't find one, so what I did, I says, okay, if you have to piecemeal this together to get RAM, a CPU, GPU, so on and so forth, I just put on here, on average, you can pick these up for $100. You can get them for less, you can get them for more. I don't usually like to pay more than $100, I like to pay less. But $13 for 32 gigs of RAM, believe it or not. $6 for an 8-core, 16-thread. And then $10 for a GPU, $16 for, again, for the SSD for the operating system, $145 for a complete workstation here that we're going to use as a server, and then $160 for the hard drives. That's $305. Now, one of the things that I need to mention about Wolfgang's system, it's only using 23 watts. But why is it only using 23 watts? The big thing that he did is he spins down his hard drives. So when he's figuring out his wattage, his system is idle without the hard drives running. Now the reason why he can get away with it is because he has those 2 NVMe drives. Now I think he's using Unraid because he talked about Unraid, and Unraid has an option where if you use SSDs or NVMe drives, it will put the files that you're using the most on those SSD drives and spin down your hard drives. And then when you're done with those, or you need another file, it will then start the hard drives up, grab that file, and put it on the SSD or NVMe pool that you create. That's a very efficient way to use your server. Now he does a lot of video editing, and so that's why he has 2 terabyte NVMe drives that he did in a stripe or 0 RAID they call it, and that's where he's able to, when his system is at idle, even when he's editing a video, if all of those files that he's editing is sitting on the SSD drives, he's running his thing at 23 terabytes. Now let's say he has Plex on there and he's going to watch a movie, then it's got to spin up the hard drives. Okay, so it might take a little longer. With Unraid, Unraid's a great solution if you don't need immediate access with your file server. Okay, so now so that covers why that is his biggest trick on why he's, because if his hard drives were spinning, he would be way over. He'd probably be, anyway, he could be as high as 50, 60 watts running. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to go in. So let's talk about how I came up with the price on this system. I just talked about how he was able to get 23 watts, but he's using the Supermicro case. These Supermicro cases, they are not cheap cases. So I put a minimum of $400. Maybe he got it for less, I don't know. I wish he would have put the price of how much this system costs to get the kind of efficiency that he's looking at. The CPU that he was using, that's the i3 13100 CPU. It's $125 the last time I checked. It could be less now. Motherboard, he probably paid $100 or $60, I don't know. And then because it wasn't the most modern, it was a little older motherboard. I put 4 hard drives here and then 4 terabytes, which gives him 16 drives, because he, in his video, and I don't know this for sure, but I thought he mentioned that he had 4 terabyte hard drives, but then when you're watching the video, you see he has 3 6 terabyte hard drives. Either way, you're looking at $400 to $420 for those hard drives. So $400 for that. 2 1 terabyte NVMe drives, that's $100 because you get about $50 each. Then that motherboard does not support NVMe, so you had to get a dual PCI NVMe card. That's about $20 to $25. His PCU or his power supply, you're looking at, I don't know how much he paid because he never did say. Let's just say $60, $50. 10 gigabit network card, $175 to $185. Now the fans, I'm assuming if he bought the case, the fans came with it, but if it didn't, $25. RAM, $40. So that all adds up to about $1,345, give or take. I mean, he could have even spent more than this. He could have spent a little less than this. I don't know, because he never mentioned how much all of this stuff was. He mentioned the NIC. I think he said it was $75, but I don't remember him mentioning very much pricing on any of this stuff. So that's what we got there. All right, so now let's compare. My system runs at 130 watts with the hard drives in it. So let's compare that, but we're also going to compare a couple other systems that are low wattage systems. So just recently, I made a video on these 2 PCs right here. This is a small form factor Dell. This is a mini PC HP. Both of these are great, and I really like this mini HP mini PC. Now, this mini PC, if it just has an NVMe drive on it, it idles at 5 watts. But if you're going to use it a file server, you got to put in figure out a way to do more NVMe's, or you have to use a unit like this 4 bay unit down here below, and that increases your wattage. Anytime you need if you're going to use this for a file server and you need more than 4 terabytes, and I needed to use 3 NVMe's for my home business server that I'm replacing, so that increases the wattage on this here. Same with this one here. I used this one here. I tested it with 2 SSDs because it can take 2 SSDs and an NVMe and a 10 gig NIC. So we're going to take a look at the efficiencies of these as well, and what they cost per year to run. So let's go ahead and look at the spreadsheet. Okay, now what you've been waiting for. So let's go over the computers that I tested here. So I have 3 of my own that I tested. I have that HP Z420 that I tested. It's here at 265. So here I have the HP mini PC, and the PC itself doesn't cost $765. The The mini PC costs $125. But what I need is I need a $20 adapter because I need 3 NVMe drives, and it fits 2 in the mini unit itself, and then I'll have to run an adapter to the USB port to run the other one. So I need an adapter there. Then $600 because those NVMe's are $200 plus or minus. So that gives me $600 for my drives, and then another $20 for the operating system that I'm going to put on there. And then the Dell small form factor, it's at $715 because the PC itself is only $50 on eBay, $45 for a 10 gig card on eBay, but then I still have those NVMe, I have one NVMe 4 terabyte drive I'm putting in here, and 2 SSD 4 terabyte drives in here. In fact, if I didn't mention it, this HP is getting 4 terabytes as well. That's why they're $600. And then the $20 to put the operating system on. Okay, so now what we got down here is I've got this. So the viewer that messaged me talking about how much more efficient the i3 was, I said, okay, well, let's put together a system. And I put together a system, and I figured this system would cost about $825. Let's see how I got to that. So $125 for that CPU, $100 for the motherboard. You could spend less on a motherboard. Power supply $50. The RAM is $40. The case $80, and you could buy a $50 case as well. $30 for the operating system, or $20. And then I just put other here in case I'm missing something. And then, so I approximately came out with $425 for this system. But we need our hard drives in there, and 4 terabyte hard drives are $100 each. So we got $400, so we got $825 here. So, and this could be plus or minus depending on what kind of parts you put in here. But I think this is pretty moderate, safe projection here for this price. So now let's just go ahead and go down to where we calculate electricity for the day. Okay, right here, this is a formula, but you ignore this top line because they were doing a formula to break down for a fridge, and a fridge they say kicks on 3 times a day and blah blah blah. So ignore the first line. So you take the rest of these lines, and that's how you'll figure out your cost per day for electricity. And so then what we have up here in the U.S. electricity, the average electricity rate in the U.S. is 16 cents. Where I live, it's 13 cents, but we're going to go with the average. So the HP Z420, 95, it idles at 95 watts, and then we've got a cost here of almost of 36 cents, a little bit more. So then the HP, with the NVMEs that I add to it, the adapter, it idles at 18 watts, and so we got almost 7 cents here per day to run this. Then the Dell small form factor, it's 37 watts, and so now we got 14 cents a day. And then of course this i3 build that we did, we're looking at 25 cents a day, rounding that up. So let's look at the costs and savings. Let's see what cost of savings we have with electricity, and then the difference that we're going to pay extra for these systems. So right now I've got this HP set at $300. I think that's more realistic. You may not find one for $100 that has everything in it that you need for the server. So this is probably more realistic price here. And then we've got our same cost per day down here, but so then our monthly cost is $10, $2, $4, and $7 for these systems here. But our yearly cost for the HP is $131. Our yearly cost for the HP Mini is $25, and the yearly cost for the Dell small form factor is $52 or $51, excuse me. And then the i3 build is $90. So what we got to do here is our savings that we're going to be looking at is going to be this $24.88 minus $131. So we're actually, by going with this small form factor, we're actually saving $106 a year. We're also saving $80 a year for using the Dell, or excuse me, using the HP Mini. We're saving $106. Using the Dell small form factor, we're saving $80. And then we're saving $41 by going with this build, this i3 build. So what we have to do here though is the price difference is over here. So I'm actually paying an extra $465 to use this HP Mini in order to gain these savings. I'm paying $415 extra than buying the HP Z420, and $525 more extra than if I bought the HP Z420. So how many years? So what we're looking at is how many years does it take to break even before I start saving money on electricity? And on the HP, we're looking at 4 years, a little over 4 years. For the Dell, we're looking at 5 years, and just a little over 5 years. And then for the i3 build, we're looking at 12 years. Now, let's go in, because what we really want to do here is we want to compare Wolfgang's system here. So let's change these numbers, and let's put in Wolfgang's system here, and then we're at 23 watts here. And now what we're doing with Wolfgang's system, we're spending an extra $1,000 to gain this. Now, okay, let me back up here. So it's almost $32 a year that we spend in electricity. So our savings is $99 in savings. But we paid an extra $1,000 to get this system over the HP Z420. So now we're looking at 10 years to make up the difference there. But what I want to do here is I want this HP Z420 to be more apples to apples, because right now the way this HP Z420 is set up is not apples to apples to the Wolfgang's system, and so that'll increase our price, and it'll also increase a little bit of our wattage use as well. So what we're going to do here is, so Wolfgang has two 1 terabyte NVMe drives and PCI cards to run that. So we're going to add an extra $150 to that 300 price. So now we're looking at $450. Okay. Now he also runs a 10 gigabit network card. So let's add another $50, because I can get one of those for $45 on eBay. So we'll add another $50 to that. So that puts us at $500. That's also going to increase our wattage use. And I know that my card, now one of the cards I have is a dual, so I don't know if that's fair, but it increases it by 10 watts. So that'd give us 105 watts. The NVMe cards, let's just say that increases it another. Oh, let's put this at 105, and let's say the two NVMe drives in the card. Let's say that's an extra 15 watts. So let's say we're at 120 watts now for this system, because it will add more watts as we add those parts. So now let's see how many years it takes to break even. Now these are U.S. prices again. We're going to look at the UK here in a minute. So now we're looking at 6 years to break even, and we're looking at about 2 years on the other ones to break even. So the ones that are 2 years, that's not bad. And this is my whole thing. In 6 years, are you still going to be using the same server? You possibly could, because I have servers, like I said, my home business server, we've had it for 10 years. Now, let's go ahead and look at the UK. In the UK, their average, and this might vary from country to country, but their average is 0.25 for their electricity costs. So now let's see how that works out up here. It changed it a little bit. We are now, instead of closer to 2 years to break even on the mini HP and the Dell small form factor, now we're at a 1, and then we are at 4 years with Wolfgang's system. Now this is the thing. Europe's price, or Europe's electricity, obviously is way higher than ours, and this is why. And Wolfgang he's out of Germany, and this is why he is so obsessed with lowering the wattage as much as possible, so he doesn't pay such a high power bill. We're fortunate in the U.S. that our electricity is still low. That may change, but we are relatively low. And it's not like it hasn't gone up. It has. But my whole thing is here, I just wanted to show you what your return on investment is. And so in the U.S., is 6 years too long to receive a return on investment? I don't know, that would be up to the individual user. And it depends too, maybe you want a system like his. I think it's pretty cool how he did that and used Unraid to load onto the SSDs the files that he needs to work on and then load those back. And I'm not sure how that works. I'm sure it just every now and then it'll save those to the hard drives so you don't lose any data. But you know, where I'm looking at only 1 year for my return on investment for the small form factor and the mini PC, that, you know, if I'm in Europe, that's a no-brainer. I just do those right there. In the US, still 2 years, that's not that bad. And you got to remember, I'm actually, you know, I have my server. Let's go ahead and let's change this back to the US pricing right here for a minute. Let's put 16 cents back in here. That'll change those numbers. Now, in the US, I do not have to change my server out. It still works, but I am going to change it out to one of these. So my cost of doing that is obviously going to be in the $700 range. And my year to break even really doesn't matter because my PC is so old enough that it doesn't matter. I don't even remember what I paid for the PC, to be honest. I bought it so long ago. The other thing that I want to show here is that you could take this HP, put Unraid on it, and do the same thing that Wolfgang did it, because we put those two NVMEs in this. That price includes the two NVMEs now, and I personally don't know exactly what the wattage is. I mean, he mentioned that it was 5 watts per drive, so let's just lower this 5 watts per drive. We've got, so let's just make this 100. Let's say that we're doing that. Let's just, out of curiosity, let's make this 100 watts now. So now you look at this, and now we're close to 8 years if you're going to run this exactly like he ran his. So the whole reason why I'm doing this is just want you to see the whole picture. You know, there's always a return on investment, and the whole thing. And the other thing is too, the whole purpose of creating my server that I did here. Let's put the original numbers back in, okay? Because you may just want just a file server. You're not going to do anything fancy to it. So let's change this back to $300. Now that's not comparing the apples, but now look at our return on investment. Again, we're closer to 5 years on the two systems here, and then we're at 10 years on Wolfgang's system. So everything is perspective and what your needs are, and what you're willing to spend. But I just wanted to show you this, that there's all kinds of ways to look at wattage. You have to look at all of them. I know it's a lot of numbers and everything, but I just hope that was helpful, eye-opening here. And this is TJ with TechMadeEZ. Have a great day. Thanks.